Today, let's explore a deeply captivating romantic story. Meet Winter, a young lady who has held a silent, enduring admiration for the brilliant corporate heir, Julian, for years. But in a sudden turn of events, Julian's heart seems drawn to Winter's adoptive sister, Amelia. To safeguard their family legacies, their parents decide to arrange a formal marriage agreement between Julian and Winter. Will this lead to resentment, or is it the beginning of an unexpected emotional journey? Let's find out. Please join us in reading through this story. If you are watching, please hit the like button and leave a comment to let us know where you are tuning in from. I am working hard to create content, and your likes, comments, and subscriptions give me the energy to keep going. Let's get started. You look breathtaking. Scarlett, the confident voice inside Winter, whispered in admiration. Winter was not used to wearing such an elegant silver gown, but it was perfect for tonight's grand gala. The event was hosted by the prominent Winthrop family of the Atlas Group, a highly anticipated gathering for the elite youth of the region. Every young lady hoping for a true, genuine connection felt the excitement. For years, people had looked forward to this milestone celebration. Winter's eyes, however, were fixed on only one person: Julian, the eldest brother and the ultimate dream of everyone in the room. However, despite liking him for so long, she did not really think that she had a chance with him. Not when he treated her like a pesky inconvenience in his path. She had never understood why he always acted hostile towards her, and she had never asked. But she decided to confess her love to him tonight. She expected the dress to be the perfect boost, catching his attention at first sight. "Oh, Princess Amelia, this dress looks like it was made for you." Winter's thoughts were cut short as her adoptive sister Amelia emerged from her fitting room. The shopping attendants enthused while other shoppers stopped what they were doing to stare in admiration. Amelia was wearing a baby blue dress with a bow detail across the bust, bringing out her fair skin and long blonde curls. She looked like a well-groomed Barbie. She was always stunningly dressed, and unlike Winter, she was the true definition of an heir princess. The triplets did not treat her with the same hostility or coldness they extended to Winter. Winter's heart stung, as she imagined that if Julian was asked to choose one between them, he would definitely settle for Amelia. "Wow, that's such a beautiful dress." Amelia's voice pulled Winter from her depressing thoughts. Amelia had stopped checking herself and had turned to observe Winter instead. "It's so much prettier than this dull thing. Do you like it, dear?" Winter's mother, Sylvia, asked as she walked into the area just then. Winter's heart dropped to her stomach. Knowing what her mother was likely to say, she came to a stop in front of her and studied the dress. "This looks more like Amelia's style. You should try it on," she said to Amelia. She did not ask Winter whether she would like to give it to Amelia to try on, or if she was willing to part with it. Sylvia gently adjusted the fabric on Amelia, then turned a cool, indifferent gaze toward Winter. This design perfectly complements Amelia's features for her birthday. Her mother spoke, her tone leaving no room for discussion. "Winter, please step back into the dressing room and let your sister have this one." Winter lowered her head, realizing that open resistance would change nothing. "Yes, Mum," she whispered softly. "Yes, Mum," Winter replied. With her head down, she had to give up since she knew resistance was to no avail. Winter always remembered the day when she found out that Amelia snooped on her diary where she had written about her crush on Julian. Amelia didn't apologize but taunted Winter. Winter was so pissed off, she pushed Amelia out of her room. But then Amelia burst into tears. Sylvia heard her crying and rushed into the room. Before Winter could explain, Amelia complained to their mother that Winter didn't welcome her into the family and wanted to kick her out. Mum harshly scolded Winter, ordering Winter to take care of Amelia, whether she accepted or not. Winter was so upset. She couldn't figure out why her mother favored Amelia, an adoptive daughter, more than her own daughter. She had to tell herself until she is strong enough to leave the conglomerate. And today, she wanted Julian to see her flawless makeup, not a scold lifetime commitment on her face. As soon as Winter went back into the dressing room, she leaned against the door and gazed up at the ceiling. She was straining to keep the tears in. She couldn't bawl and mess up the makeup. She did not have another 2 hours to do it again. Scarlett was not having it. "It's just a dress," Winter said. "I can find another one. Don't act cool. I can tell you are down." Winter sighed. "She is my sister. Besides, it also happens to be her birthday. Let her have it." It was true. It was Amelia's 18th birthday. Winter knew it was part of the reason the triplets had decided to throw the prom that day. "Can't you see what she is doing? She is jealous that you got the best dress and wants to take it from you. She can't stand that you look better than her. This is what she has always been doing, taking away your things. She acts innocent and you fall for it every single time." Winter frowned. "That's because I care about my brother, Scar. That's because I care about my brother," Winter Softy said. Years ago, during an inspiring journey, her brother encountered Amelia, an orphan who was bravely seeking her path. Touched by her resilience, the family warmly welcomed her into their home, ensuring she grew up surrounded by care and protection as an honored member of the household. "You are too kind for your own good, and it has completely blinded you to her true nature," Scarlett argued. "She has never thought of you as her own sister. Ever since she came to your family, all of your parents' attention has turned to her. Right now, your mother did not even acknowledge how beautiful her own daughter looked in this dress. All she could think about was that it was a good match for her adopted daughter, despite feeling unwanted." Winter shook her head. "You are being dramatic, Scar, am I? Okay, tell me this. What if Julian is your ideal partner but Amelia wants him? Will you give him away to her?" "It would never happen because the triplets don't like me," Winter said, hanging her head. "They would reject me in the first place. Not to mention if she was their true connection, they would have found out already. She had turned 18 2 years ago, and much to her disappointment, she had not turned out to be fated to Julian." "You are wrong," Scarlett said. "No prestigious family doesn't want their ideal partner. I would never give up on my true connection, no matter what. Only Amelia would rock that dress. It is spot on for you, sweetheart." Sylvia praised Amelia after she had changed into Winter's dress, kissing both her cheeks. Winter kept quiet, although she heard others whispering that the dress didn't fit Amelia at all. It sure was a flashy piece. "You, go change into this one," Sylvia said, throwing Winter a white gown. "Mum, is it not too plain for an important party?" Amelia asked. "She's incredibly good at pretending," Scarlett hissed inwardly, whereas Winter kept silent. "How thoughtful of you," Sylvia said. "But you're the only one who should be in the spotlight tonight, Amelia. It's your 18th birthday." Turning around, Winter couldn't bear any more of her mother's bias. She changed into the outfit her mother gave to her and stayed silent on the way to the hotel. The car came to a stop, and the Hart family got out. As Winter emerged from the backseat alongside Amelia, she marveled at the hotel and the bright lights livening up the exterior. Her heart beat a tad faster at the thought that Julian was somewhere in there, and soon she would see him. "Amelia!" A cheery male voice called, and Winter looked to find 2 of the Winthrop triplets walking towards them. The one who had called out Amelia's name was Arthur, the youngest of the triplets. With him was Blue, the second eldest. They were both dressed in tuxedos, with their hair slicked back from their faces. They were both over 6 feet tall, and insanely handsome looks ran in the family. But no matter how identical they were, Winter thought Julian was the most gorgeous among them. All the brothers had natural blonde hair, but Blue's was often bleached to a silvery hue that matched his eyes. As it was now, Arthur's eyes were hazel brown and were always glinting with an emotion. Winter stood to the side and watched as both brothers greeted Amelia with hugs and wished her a happy birthday. None of them turned to her or acknowledged her presence. She was used to that. Once they said hi to Amelia, they turned to her parents, the heir and leading lady of the family of Ivory conglomerate, and shook hands with them, welcoming them to the party. Winter's parents went into the hotel and left the four of them standing outside. Arthur hooked Amelia's hand around his arm and Blue flanked her other side as they turned to go into the hotel. "Oh, sorry," Amelia said, just before they left, turning back to Winter. "I have to go." "Winter, will you be fine on your own?" Winter nodded. "I'm all right. Don't worry about me," Scarlet hissed inwardly. "She is not worried about you." Amelia looked at Arthur, and then Blue. "Can you guys set Winter up with a date for the prom? She doesn't have anyone, and it'll be so sad if she spends the night alone." The smile fell right off Winter's face. Why on earth would Amelia bring that up? Sure, no one had asked her to the prom, but that was her business. She especially did not want to announce it to the Winthrop brothers. Blue shrugged, his eyes bored as he regarded Winter. Amelia poked his arm. "Come on, Blue. She's just shy. I'm sure you know a guy who doesn't have a date. I would feel bad having a date while she goes solo." "She's doing that on purpose," Scarlet countered sharply. "She wants to seem like a caring sister, but what she's really doing is humiliating you, setting you up with random guys. What a manipulative girl." "Damn it. You should have come with a date." "I am a reject too," Winter replied. "I've got no offers either. Only because you walk around with a sign on your forehead that screams, 'If you're not Julian Winthrop, don't you dare look my way.' Then there are those hideous things you wear to school." "Of course," Scarlet said. Winter fought a smile. Scarlet always spoke her mind, and she was quite entertaining while at it. While Winter was quiet and mild-natured, Scarlet was fiery and did not shy away from confrontation. She was always egging Winter to ditch the smiles and bring out the claws. "I'll be fine on my own," Winter told Amelia. "Don't say that," Amelia told her. "I'm sure the boys can find someone for you. We'll go now. Bye." She waved at Winter. Winter followed behind them and heard Arthur comforting Amelia, saying she has been very considerate of her sister. Winter felt embarrassed and kept her distance from them once they made their way into a huge ballroom. She already knew the brothers didn't think much of her. She did not need to hear the things they said about her. What if Julian said the same things? She would never get over it. Winter made her way through the crowd, seeking a corner with little activity. Her eyes roamed the room, looking for the one person she wanted to see tonight. She was determined to talk him tonight, maybe ask him for a dance. She could no longer keep on hoping he would notice her. It was time to make the move herself. Just then, the lights flickered, signaling the arrival of someone important. The crowd turned their attention towards the entrance, and a few seconds later, the lights came back on, converging on a single person. It was Julian. Butterflies erupted in Winter's stomach as she took him in. Bathed in the spotlight, he looked like a myth. Everything from his hair to his face was perfect, flawless. Even from a distance, she could feel the powerful aura that he exuded. With just a single glance, anyone could tell that he was the future heir of the Atlas conglomerate. He excelled in everything and carried himself with an air that made him seem a level above his age soulbound. It was no wonder that Winter was not the only young lady in the room looking at him with stars in their eyes. All around Winter, people discussed him and his brothers, wondering who would turn out to be the triplets' ideal partner. "I would bet on the Ivory conglomerate girl," one of them said. "Amelia, is it? She is the perfect match for them." "I agree," another one said. "She is an heir's daughter, and just look at her. Doesn't she look like royalty? I don't think any other young lady would be suitable for the Winthrop brothers." Not only were the brothers enamored by Amelia, Even outsiders thought she was the perfect choice for them. Amelia was Ivory Conglomerate's princess, not Winter. Since Amelia would turn 18 tonight, people were hoping she would turn out to be the triplets' true connection. Standing in a corner, Winter feared that it was all she would ever be, a bystander, who would never get close enough. She couldn't have regrets, she told herself. Even though she is just one of his admirers, the one he always ignored, she dreamt of him choosing her. She wouldn't know until she gave it a try. There was movement in the crowd, and Winter suddenly realized that Julian was walking towards her. She stood frozen, watching people part to let him through. Her mouth went dry the closer he got, her heart punishments wildly. I must be dreaming, she thought. He was coming straight towards her. She tangled her hands together and licked her lips. She hadn't expected him to be the one to approach her. But her thoughts grind to a stop as he moved around her and went right past her. She blinked. Of course, he had not been coming towards her. Like a fool, she had been standing in his way. She swallowed and turned to see where he was going. Hey, handsome, Amelia greeted excitedly. Hey, beautiful, he replied. The two pulled back, and Julian tucked a stray piece of Amelia's hair behind her ear while gazing down at her tenderly. He was always tender with her like that, treating her like the most delicate treasure. They looked like the perfect match after all. He had been the school's star athlete and she the most popular cheerleader. Amelia's eyes went straight to Winter, who she gave a smug look. It was the most honest expression she had directed at her all night. It was not a fake smile or pretended concern. Looking away, Winter hid herself back in the crowd. She should have known she couldn't win over Julian. She comforted herself. But the tears swelling in her eyes betrayed her. She had first fallen for Julian 4 years ago, and since their first interaction had been gentle, she had thought they would grow close. And if she was lucky, he would like her too. But around that same time, Amelia started getting close to the triplets. She would come back home with stories of how she had hung out with them and talk non-stop about them. Winter tried to avoid her because her stories only made her upset, since unlike her sister, she had not managed to get close to Julian. In those 4 years, the triplets' ideal partner had not shown up, and since Amelia was so close to them, everyone thought she would eventually become their leading lady of the family. As far as everyone was concerned, it was only a matter of time. The clock struck midnight, and everyone turned to the triplets and Amelia for any reaction. And, as everyone watched, the color of their eyes changed to golden. Gasps filled the room. Their true connection was in the room. It's you, Arthur embraced, wrapping his arms around Amelia and twirling her around. His brothers looked ecstatic, too, as they looked at Amelia with a new intense affection in their eyes. The crowd cheered. Winter's pounding beat painfully. Everybody around her was celebrating, but she felt numb. Winter hunkered down in a corner, digging her head into her knees. Everyone was cheering for the triplets and their ideal partner Amelia, and she could as well not have existed in that room, her hopes of approaching Julian erased just like that. He had found his ideal partner who was her adopted sister. The cheers were punishments, like a drum in Winter's eardrums, making her feel like she was about to pass out. Scar, losing Julian hurt so much. Winter cried to her business leader. She thought she'd readied herself for the worst, but when it hit her, she still felt like the world had ended. The last time she felt this broken was when her brother passed away. I'm sorry, Scarlet whispered, her voice devoid of any sarcasm. You're right, Scar. I am the one unwanted, not her. Oh, don't say that. I didn't mean it. You should let him go. As it turns out, he isn't our chosen one. We deserve better. Was there even a perfect partner out there that is better than Julian? Winter wished she could agree with Scarlet. Nah. She might not be able to fall in love again. Boys, hold up. their parents showed up while the triplets showered their affection on Amelia. Unlike everyone else in the room, there was no sign of joy on their faces. Their father, Herr Herbert, said, "Come with us." He did not wait for their response as he turned and addressed Winter. "You too, Miss Hart." Herr Herbert and leading lady of the family Astrid. The triplets' mother walked away, expecting the four to follow. Confused murmurs erupted all around as people sought to understand what was happening. Winter was confused, too. Had Herr Herbert meant her or Amelia? Amelia was the one who had turned out to be the boy's ideal partner. Why would he summon her instead? The group left the venue and went back to the Atlas conglomerate's conglomerate house. The brothers were agitated, annoyed at having to leave the party and their newly found perfect partner. Their parents refused to say why they had asked them to leave until they got to the house. It was the same case with Winter's parents. She asked what it was about and why Amelia did not come with them. And they told her to wait and she would find out soon. The three exchanged confused glances, while Winter looked at Atlas's heir with shock. What did he mean? Blue chuckled. "Come on, Dad, that can't be true." His tone indicated he thought his father was joking, and he was waiting for the punchline. But why would the heir of the Atlas conglomerate joke about something like that? Winter wondered. Also, looking at her parents, she saw that they were not surprised. Whatever this was, it was an agreement among them. "Exactly what I've said," Herbert said. "We have discussed this, and we've come to an agreement with the Ivory conglomerate." Julian shot to his feet and shook his head. "When exactly did you come to this agreement? How can you not consult us about such a big decision?" "Consult you?" Herbert asked, unfazed by his son's reactions. "We are your parents and elders, in case you forgot. We have experience and we know what's good for you and the conglomerate. You can do whatever you want when you become heir, but right now you do what we say. Watch your language." Their mother warned. "We just found out Amelia is our chosen one." "Not this girl," Arthur embraced, pointing at Winter without looking at her. "As heir and leading lady of the family of this conglomerate, shouldn't you be more aware of the importance of the emotional bond? How can you suggest that we ignore that and go for someone else? It makes no sense." Leading lady of the family Astrid said, "You are strong enough to overcome whatever happens, so that's not a big concern. What's more important is our alliance with the Ivory conglomerate, which we need. Winter, unlike Amelia, is the true daughter of the Ivory conglomerate, so she must become the leading lady of the family." Arthur turned sharply to Winter and walked over to where she was sitting. "Was this your idea?" Astrid sighed and sat down next to Winter. "I'm so sorry, dear. Please don't mind them. They are just surprised." Winter wished that was it, but she knew better. The brothers had never liked her, and she knew to them. They had always preferred Amelia, and now that she was their ideal partner, why would they reject Amelia and settle for her? Winter looked at her parents to see whether they could be having second thoughts. They always loved and cared about Amelia. How could they bear to see her suffer from being dumped? However, she gulped as her mother's stern eyes burned into her, as if silently warning her not to ruin things. Her heart beat painfully. Her parents had not even considered Amelia's feeling, let alone that they would allow her to decline. Her fate was in their hands, and there was nothing she could do. "We'd love it if Julian became our son-in-law," her mother told the Winthrops. "They would make a good couple." "You are right," Astrid agreed. "I'm sure Winter is the best leading lady of the family for my son. It's for the good of both our conglomerates." "Mom, please be realistic about this," Julian spoke, his voice filled with frustration as he stood up, he unable to accept this sudden arrangement. Winter swallowed and dared to look at Julian. His face was tense and darkened by anger. As the most obedient son among the triplets, he seldom went against his parents on the spot. Inside the private study of the Atlas estate, the atmosphere grew tense. Master Herbert calmly addressed his sons. For the future stability of our corporate alliance, we have reached an understanding with the Ivory Group. We intend for a formal partnership to be established between Julian and Winter. Julian stood up immediately, shaking his head in disbelief. How could you make such a significant decision regarding my life without consulting me? He objected firmly, unable to accept this sudden arrangement. Winter watched his sharp reaction, her heart aching. She knew he resented this decision. And the last thing she wanted was to be part of an unhappy relationship. That's kind of you, Astrid said. But you are a smart girl, and I'm sure you understand why we are doing this. Winter frowned. But Julian has already chosen Amelia as his partner. I cannot just break them up. Winter shook her head repeatedly. Why's she such a sneaky girl in his eyes? No, I'd never thought of that, Winter replied. Although Julian showed nothing but frustration, Winter gathered her courage to look at him, wanting to convey her unspoken feelings. Winter could not help feeling envious of the connection between them. If only she was the one linked to him like that, so that he could always sense how depressed she was. But the heartbreak was that he desperately ran to Amelia, his counterpart. You should go get him, Astrid said to Winter, effectively bringing everybody's attention to her. Me? She asked in uncertainty. She was about the last person Julian wanted to see or even talk to at that moment. What made them think she could make him come back? Yes, Astrid confirmed. Julian has to forget about Amelia and focus on you, his leading lady of the family. Now, the two of you are going to run this conglomerate together in the future, and this could be a good opportunity to talk. The earlier you get used to each other, the better. It will be a good start if you can convince him to come back. Winter did not think she could sway Julian at all, but she was worried about him. As the future heir of the Atlas conglomerate, he could not afford to throw tantrums and rebel whenever he wished. She did not want this to ruin his relationship with his parents or disinherit him. All right, I'll give it a try, she said, rising to her feet. She wasn't trying to twist the arm of Julian into accepting her. She would flat out reject this arranged marriage. But as soon as she arrived at the garden, she heard Julian. Winter was stunned. Julian, why? Winter quickly hid behind a bush, staying out of sight. She hadn't seen them yet, but she could hear everything they were saying. What are you talking about? What happened to you? Amelia asked, her voice sounding broken. I've been looking forward today for years, but you turned me down that way. I am your perfect partner, Julian. Our parents have arranged a marriage between us, Julian told her. They want me to break my bond with you and marry Winter instead. But you won't do that, right? Amelia asked, her voice hopeful. Winter held her breath as she waited to hear Julian's reply. Julian had vehemently refused his parents' order. Why was she hoping that he would tell Amelia that yes, he would do as they asked? I'm sorry, Amelia. I have to do it, Julian answered. Julian's voice was full of pain, which tugged Winter's heart further. She could not stand to hear him sounding so disappointed. No, please don't do this to me, Julian, Amelia cried out, hugging him. It's ridiculous. How can they pull something like this just when you finally found your true love all along? You've been the perfect son doing whatever was asked of you. So why would they want to ruin your life like this? Do they really care about you? Amelia was right. Julian had done everything right. What could she do to make him feel better when he felt that this marriage would ruin his life? You are not actually thinking about comforting him, are you? Scarlet asked. I just can't bear seeing him in such pain, Winter replied. Scarlet hissed, unimpressed. You are too good-tempered, I tell you. He has made it clear that he hates the idea of being married to you, and he clearly hates you. Why do you have to worry about him? You should treat him the same way he is treating you. Winter sighed and said nothing. Sure, he did not like her. Winter wished she knew why so she could fix it. but right now she had to keep him from getting in trouble with his parents. A sob sounded as Amelia started crying. "I knew it," she sobbed. "My parents could never let me have anything good for myself. They have always looked down on me since I arrived at the conglomerate because of my lowly status. Me getting destined partner to you instead of their real daughter would be like an insult to them." Amelia sobbed, pressing her face into Julian's chest. "She is taking everything from me, Julian," she whispered brokenly. "I swear she won't be able to do that," Julian asserted. "Look at Mia. Look at Melia. Look at me. I'm promising you now that I won't have anyone else but you. I won't leave you. I promise." Winter's heart pained at Julian's words. He sounded so certain as he made the promise to Amelia. It was as if he was willing to sacrifice everything, including his inheritance, so he could be with her. "Wow," Scarlett whispered. "I don't know what to say. She's accusing you of all the things she does to you. She has a far much better life at our conglomerate than you do, and your parents are always treating her better. You are the one who has suffered since she showed up. How can she be so shameless and tell such lies? And how can he be so stupid, believing her every word? He doesn't know any better," Winter defended Julian. "He loves Amelia, so of course he would trust Amelia's words." She did not know what to think. When leading lady of the family Astrid asked her to go after Julian, she had hoped to get through to him in some way. But after hearing all the promises he was making to Amelia, she wasn't so sure. If he was willing to sacrifice everything for her adopted sister, how could she convince him to do as his parents wanted? Was he really so in love with Amelia? It must be because of the chosen one link between them, she told herself. Because of that, he would naturally fight against anything and anyone who attempted to separate him from Amelia. Keeping that in mind, she decided to not take any of it personally. She would do as leading lady of the family Astrid instructed, and try to get him to go back. She coughed as she stepped out from behind the bushes and walked towards the direction of the voices. She finally saw them, and they both turned to look at her when she showed up. Tears were streaking down Amelia's face. When she saw Winter, she stepped behind Julian. "What are you doing here?" Julian asked Winter. "What do you want?" "You parents sent me to ask you to come back," she replied. Julian scoffed. "Is that so?" He took a step towards her, his aura growing more intimidating the closer he got. "Don't think I don't know you are in cahoots with them. You know that your sister is my other half, and that's what you want to take away from her, right? Haven't you taken enough?" "Tell him she's not telling the full truth," Scarlett encouraged. Winter's heart stung, but she did not let Julian's cold words get to her. She knew he wouldn't believe her if she called Amelia a liar, so Scarlett's suggestion wouldn't work. But that didn't mean she would just let him assume the worst about her. "This union has nothing to do with me," she said, looking him straight in the eyes. "I also found out about it the same time that you did. If you don't want it to happen, you should come back with me and deal with it." Julian raised his brow. "I have to give it to you. You are quite a good actor, the perpetrator, acting like the victim. This act might have worked for you before, but it won't this time, I promise." Winter swallowed and held her ground. "Like I said, if you want to solve this, you should come back to the conglomerate house." With that, she turned and walked back the way she came. She tried to ignore the pain in her heart, but it was futile. How could she not feel anything when the man she loved so much looked at her and talked to her with so much loathing? Her parents might not like it, but she decided that the best thing to do was to refuse the arranged marriage. It was the only way to help Julian, and she was willing to risk their anger to do it. To Winter's relief, Julian came after her, and the two of them went back to the conglomerate house. Their parents and Blue and Arthur were still waiting for them. Julian's parents were angry at him, but not even the fire in their eyes cowered him. As soon as he remembered the pain in Amelia's voice and all the suffering she had gone through, he became more determined to fight against the arrangement. "How dare you walk out on us?" Herr Herbert guided as he faced his son. Do you think this is child's play? Do you think your mother and I are fools who don't know how to make the best decisions for the conglomerate? I'm sure he has come to his senses, leading lady of the family Astrid said, walking forward. Right, Julian? I understand that this could be a shock. I don't want this marriage, Julian said, interrupting his mother. Amelia is my other half, and she's the one I want. Herbert's jaw tensed as the anger in his eyes flamed anew. It seems that you've forgotten your responsibility as the eldest son of this family, he said, his tone sharp. You think you are more important than this conglomerate, and that's where you are wrong, young man. I don't want to see such a capricious heir in my house. Darling, Astrid said, addressing Julian, taking a calmer approach than her connection. I don't know why you are so against marrying Winter. She is such a good girl, and you two would make such a good pair. Why don't you drop the prejudice against her and try to get along? Oh, Julian challenged his mother. How do you know what kind of person is she? Why do you trust her so much after only meeting her once? Astrid cocked her head. Honey, what are you? Amelia is a good girl too, Julian said. Even better, she is my fated perfect partner. She is the one the moon goddess made for me and my brothers. Who can be a better partner for me? Look, if you just bothered to get to know her, you'd realize this is not such a bad idea, Astrid said. What do you know about her that makes you think she is good for me? Or for our conglomerate? Just because someone is an heir's daughter doesn't mean she has what it takes to be a good leading lady of the family. Amelia, on the other hand, is someone I know deeply, and whose personality I trust. You may not see it now, but in the future, you will realize mating with Winter is the best decision for our two conglomerates. Like any other heir, you have to make sacrifices for the conglomerate instead of chasing your selfish needs. Astrid sighed and looked at the hearts, then at her connection. This is not up for discussion, Herbert said, looking at Julian. You have two choices, and you better believe I'm not bluffing. You can either choose to give up your inheritance as my eldest son, or you can marry Winter Hart, your choice. The room fell into a long silence as father and son faced each other. Julian's jaw worked as he considered his father's words. He knew his father was serious. If he refused the marriage, he would take away everything from him and strip him of his title as the heir of the Atlas conglomerate. His eyes moved from his father to his brothers, who were watching with frustrated expressions. From there, he switched his gaze to Winter. Turning, he walked up to her. Is this what you want? He asked her. Do you want to marry me? He had made it more than clear that he did not wish to get married to her. If she was smart, if she had any sense of self-respect, she would say no. If she refused, it would be more difficult for their parents. Winter swallowed as she looked into Julian's stormy blue eyes. Did she want to marry him? Of course. Yes. She would love to marry him. It was what she wanted to tell him. From the depth of her heart, but she knew she couldn't. He hated her. If she supported his parents, she would be helping them make him miserable. She needed to support him so that it wouldn't all be his fault. If she was the one who refused, his father couldn't strip him of his title as his heir. Right? She took a deep breath and turned towards Herr Herbert and leading lady of the family Astrid. I don't want this either, she said courageously. Let us break the engagement. What nonsense is this? Herr Sullivan, Winter's father guided. Who gave you the right to decline the arrangement? Winter turned to her father with fearful eyes. I'm sorry. How dare you talk back to me? He seethed. Is that how an heir's daughter should behave? Winter's lips trembled as she fought back sobs, but she could barely hold back her tears as the pain and humiliation overwhelmed her. She had always done her best to avoid her parents' wrath. Now, she was getting scolded in front of the Winthrops. You should be grateful for the opportunity we are giving you, her father spat. Winter shook her head, her eyes stuck on the floor. No, father, I'm sorry. You have no idea how good you have it, he objected firmly. And yet you cannot make a small contribution to your conglomerate. While the hearts crowded Winter, Astrid frowned at the exchange. She had not expected things to escalate so quickly. She had been hoping to encourage both Julian and Winter to accept the arrangement, but it appeared the hearts were not in the mood to take no for an answer from their daughter. Sylvia, I think you should take Winter and leave first, she said to Winter's mother, hoping to de-escalate the situation. We can discuss this another time. I'm very sorry about this, Sylvia said apologetically. We'll have a talk with her. Don't worry. Our plans for tomorrow should go on as decided. Winter kept her head bowed the entire time as their parents bid goodbye. She had known what was in store for her tomorrow. They'd done to her before. She was willing to suffer the pain to make it clear to Julian that she supported him. But she did not dare look at Julian as she followed her enraged parents out of the conglomerate house. She must look ugly now, which was the last thing she wanted Julian to see. Julian watched silently as the Hart family left, feeling a little confused. He had not expected the Ivory conglomerate heir to treat his daughter so roughly. According to Amelia, Winter was spoiled by her parents and always given whatever she wanted. So he would expect that her parents would give in to her since they never denied her anything. He used to think Amelia wouldn't lie to him about Winter's relationship with her parents, but it seemed not. He needed to find out why her parents were treating her like that. I'm giving you until tomorrow to reject the emotional bond between you and Amelia, Heir Herbert instructed. We will be releasing the news of your engagement to Winter in the news tomorrow, and you'll also have an engagement photo shoot with her. I suggest that you fix your attitude before then. Heir Herbert did not leave any chance for argument as he stormed out of the room. Do as your father says, Astrid told Julian. It's for the better of the conglomerate, trust me. After that, she left too, leaving the triplets in the room by themselves. Julian cursed and ran his hand through his hair. He had always known being the future heir of the Atlas conglomerate came with responsibilities. But he had never once imagined giving up his fated chosen partner would be one of them. He had been groomed for years to take over, and he had always been eager to do his best for his conglomerate. It was not something he could let go of easily. He was the heir, and he had a responsibility. He already knew that many heirs had to abandon their chosen partner and get into arranged marriages to strengthen their conglomerates. He just had never thought he would be one of them. His business leader, Ryder, knew about Julian's sense of responsibility more than anyone. Even if Julian had put up a fight, he knew that in the end, he would sacrifice his wants for the conglomerate. That's why Heir Herbert's orders pained Ryder so much, because he knew Julian would obey his father in the end. Don't give in, Ryder said. There must be a way out of this. You can't give Amelia up. She is ours. I don't have a choice, Julian replied, resigned. If this is what I have to do for the conglomerate then. He trailed off. I'm really sorry, Blue said, as the two brothers walked over to him. I wish there was something we could do to change their minds. You know, Dad, Julian said. His word is final. If I don't obey, you or Arthur will be the one marry Winter Hart, promising me to take care of Amelia after I break the emotional bond with her. He would do as his father had suggested, and find Amelia that same night and reject her before the next day. After leaving the conglomerate house, Julian asked Amelia to meet him in the garden again. It was going to be tough rejecting Amelia, but it had to be done. He hoped that she too would come to accept the inevitability of the situation and move on. The only thing that reassured him was that she would still be destined partner to his brothers, and he knew they would take good care of her. As for him, he had to put the conglomerate before his own needs. When Amelia saw him, she rushed to him. I knew you'd come back to me, she cried, hugging him tightly. We belong together, and nobody can tear us apart. She held him tightly, overwhelmed with emotion, her heart bursting with joy. She had been terrified that Winter would have her way and take Julian away. But like Julian had promised, he had not let it happen. Julian tried to pry her arms off, but she held on tight. "We should look for Blue and Arthur and celebrate," she said cheerily. "This is our first night together, and we should celebrate the moment together." "I'm sorry, Amelia," he said, his blue eyes full of sadness as he looked down at her. "I have to do it. I have to break my emotional bond with you." Her eyebrows gathered together as a cold feeling washed all over her body. What did he mean? He had promised to stay with her no matter what. "What?" she mumbled, her heart punishments rapidly. This couldn't be true. He had to be joking. Julian stepped back. "I tried refusing, but my father was adamant. If I don't do what he wants, I'll lose everything I've worked for." Amelia pressed her lips together and crossed her arms over her chest as anger and resentment swelled inside her. "Why would you just give me up? Did Winter say something that made you misunderstand me? Don't you want to be with me anymore?" Julian shook his head. "No, it's not like that. This is all my decision and has nothing to do with her." "Then why?" she guided. "Before you left, you promised we would stay together. You know this is all her doing and her family's. Why would you let them do this to me?" "I'm doing this for my conglomerate," he told her. "I'm the oldest son and I have to take responsibility. Winter has nothing to do with this. She even tried to help me." Amelia's face froze in shock. "What?" Julian nodded. "Yeah. Not only did she not say anything about you, but she tried to decline the marriage arrangement too." Amelia's gaze fell to the ground. This couldn't be happening. The last thing she needed was for Julian to be on Winter's side. If that happened, she would not be able to get what she wanted. She looked back up at Julian. "Of course she did that," she said. "She wants you to think she has nothing to do with this. I've lived with her for years, and I know what a good pretender she can be. This is her way of getting you to sympathize with her so that you won't blame her for what's happening." Julian took a step towards her. "If that's what she is looking from me, I promise you, she won't get it. But what happens after that is all up to me. I'm sorry that I can't take care of you directly, but I'll do whatever I can to make sure she won't hurt you anymore. I don't have another choice. So please accept this and move on, Amelia. It'll be best for you this way." "Fine," Amelia said, her eyes swimming with tears. "If you've made up your mind, there's nothing I can do about it. I understand your principles and I know your conglomerate is very important to you. I have to agree Winter is the true heir princess, and she can bring so much more than I can to your conglomerate. Me. I'm just an ordinary prestigious family with humble origins. I don't have anything to offer. I wish I was more useful to you, but I'm not. I hate being so worthless." "Please don't say that," Julian begged. Hearing her say such deprecating words about herself made his heart break. He did not want her to think she was worthless just because she was not chosen to be Atlas Conglomerate's next leading lady of the family. "My parents might think like that, but you know I don't. If it was up to me, you would be my leading lady of the family. And I know you would be amazing. You have so much to offer, Amelia, never doubt that." A tear slipped from Amelia's eye, and she wiped it. Did it matter that he thought so highly of her? In the end, he was going to chosen one with Winter, and Winter would eventually become the leading lady of the family of the Atlas Conglomerate. Looking at Amelia's sad face, Julia wished he could hug her and comfort her. But he knew he couldn't. He had come here to reject her, and it was better to create distance between them from now on. He could no longer comfort her. That was his brother's responsibility from now on. "I'm really sorry," he told her one last time, as he prepared to break their bond. After this, there would be no connection between them. "I, Julian Everett Winthrop, reject you, Amelia Harper Hart, as my other half. Please don't do this," she begged, tears now streaming down her face unbidden. His rejection was too painful. It felt like he had driven shards of glass into her heart with his words. "Please, Julian." But the damage was already done. Julian turned away from her as pain ricocheted through him. It felt like he was going to fall over from how agonizing it was. Using what strength he could muster, he walked away from her and immediately sent a quick message to his brothers, letting them know to come and stay by her side. Watching Julian walk away from her was like watching a piece of her walk away, leaving an empty space inside her. At that moment, she swore to get him back. She would never willingly give up. Julian might have broken his bond to her, but could he break the bond with his brothers as easily? As long as she had Blue and Arthur in her corner, she would not give up on Julian. With their help, she was certain she would succeed in getting him back. The Hearts spent the night at the Atlas conglomerate, and in the morning, Winter found out that her parents had left without saying goodbye. It was like a silent warning that there was no room for debate, and her only choice was to do as they wished. As she sat in the guest house alone, she wished she could understand why they were treating her like this. Why were they so biased against her? They had never cared about her feelings. It was as if they never saw she was hurting all those times they punished her because of Amelia when she was never in the wrong. And now it was clear that her fiancé did not want her. But they did not care about that, as long as it served their purpose. Yes, they were leading lady of the family and heir of the Ivory conglomerate. But did that mean it was the only thing that was important to them? They were her parents? Shouldn't they also care about their daughter? She felt helpless and alone, because there was no one in her corner. Her own parents did not care, and her soon-to-be husband loathed her. She was stuck between two sides that did not want her. Growing up, she had thought the day she got destined partner would be the happiest of her life. Now, it felt like the beginning of a nightmare. It was so ironical, because she was finally hitched to the man she had always desired. But it was nothing like she had dreamed it would be. After freshening up, she made her way to the Atlas conglomerate's conglomerate house. She was directed to the dining room, where she found leading lady of the family Astrid having breakfast. When she saw her, Astrid broke into a smile and rose from her chair. "Good morning, Winter. Did you sleep well?" The smile on Astrid's face and the warm tone of her voice almost made Winter break into tears. So far, Astrid was the only person who had treated her with warmth. She was gentle and loving, something Winter wished her own mother could be towards her. She envied the triplets for having a mother who was so caring. Astrid ushered her into a seat and gestured for a servant to serve Winter's breakfast. "I'm so sorry about how things ended last night," she apologized. "I know everything might look bleak right now, but give it time and it won't be so bad." Winter fiddled with her hands on her lap and met Astrid's gaze. "Is there really no chance for me to not chosen partner with Julian?" Astrid's brows drew together in a slight frown. "Oh dear. Don't you love Julian at all, I thought?" As she trailed off, Winter dropped her gaze to the food in front of her. She wished she could lie about it, but she couldn't. Were her feelings for Julian so obvious? Seeing Winter's hesitation, Astrid knew she must have guessed right. Winter had feelings for Julian, but last night, Julian had been very vocal about not wanting to perfect partner with her. Julian broke his emotional bond with Amelia last night, she informed Winter, hoping the information would help her feel better. Winter's eyes rose back to her, wide with shock. Really, after hearing his conversation with Amelia, she had not thought there was a chance he would break the emotional bond between them. But as it turned out, he had sacrificed for his brothers and his conglomerate. Astrid nodded. Yes, he did the right thing for his conglomerate. This means he is willing to give this a chance, so I hope you'll put away your doubts and fears and give this a chance too. Since he's willing to give up his relationship with Amelia, all is not lost, right? You should not give up and try to win his heart. Winter's mind was a whirlwind. She did not know how to take this. Of course, she knew Julian's decision had nothing to do with her. He had done this for his conglomerate and family. Even though Astrid sounded hopeful that their relationship could improve, Winter did not dare to hope. But right now, she could not think about what this meant for the two of them. Since Julian had broken his emotional bond with Amelia, he must be very weak. She wondered how his condition was and whether he was suffering alone. Astrid could see the worry on Winter's face, and she knew she was concerned about Julian. Thinking this could be a good opportunity for the two to bond, she asked, "Would you like to see him now?" Winter swallowed and her heart beat faster. If there was anything she could do for Julian to make him feel better, she wanted to give it a try. "Is that okay?" "Of course," Astrid assured her. Astrid gave her the directions to Julian's room, and Winter left the dining room. A few minutes later, she was standing in front of Julian's door. She hesitated for several seconds before finally gathering enough courage to knock. There was no answer even after she knocked the second time. She worried that he was too weak to get the door and tried the handle. The door was unlocked and gave way. She walked into the room as silently as she could. The room was mostly dark with the lights off and the curtains closed. The only light came from a few candles burning in the sconces. The candles gave off the scent of the forest. For a moment, she thought it could be coming from the candles. She sucked in a deep breath as she looked up, her eyes meeting Julian's. He was looking down at her, with shock in his blue eyes. Winter's throat went dry, and her mind thoughtless as she looked up into Julian's ocean gaze. What was happening? While Winter was struck speechless for a moment, Scarlett knew exactly what was going on. Julian and his business leader, Ryder, were their second-chance ideal partner. It was such an unexpected twist after everything that had happened. Winter had wished for Julian to be her connection, only to be disappointed when she turned 18 and realized he wasn't. And then he found out he was destined partner to Amelia. If he had not rejected Amelia, they would never have found out that they were second-chance soulbound. Scarlett had been waiting to meet her ideal partner for a long time, but this was not how she had thought it would happen. Sure, it was great that Winter's all-time crush was their second-chance chosen one, but she could not ignore the fact that Ryder and Amelia's business leader had been destined partner. She had not even been able to gauge his mood after losing Amelia before the surprise was thrown in their faces. For all she knew, his loathing of her was way stronger than the link between them, and this might not be enough to change his attitude towards her. "Leave," was the first thing he said to her, and it sent her heart sinking to the depths of her stomach. He was so eager to get rid of her that he did not even bother to acknowledge their new connection. If she left like this, she would not be able to have any peace of mind. She at least had to let him know why she came looking for him. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean 20. I can't deal with this right now," he cut her off. "I need a few more days to adjust." Oh, okay. So he was not throwing her out because he hated her. She understood his request. He was still reeling from breaking his emotional bond with Amelia, and now he found himself with another connection. She had no idea what that felt like, but she couldn't blame him for wanting to take some time to adjust. "Okay," she mumbled. "I'll leave now. Get some rest." "You are his fated one now," Scarlett said softly. "That changes everything." "Be patient with him and let things unfold naturally," she asked. Winter's alarms flashed. "Number, what are you thinking?" "Don't do it, Scar." She knew her business leader very well, and she knew she would jump up at the opportunity to land her in trouble. "I have to," Scarlett said. "Heaven knows you are moving too slowly." "Scar!" Winter protested desperately as she felt her business leader start trying to take over her. "Stop it! Don't mess around!" While Winter fought an internal battle with her business leader, Julian watched, wondering what was going on with her. She had announced that she was leaving, but she wasn't taking a step towards the door. Besides that, her expression showed strain, as if she was struggling with something. Frowning, he stepped forward and grabbed her shoulders. "Hey, are you okay?" The moment Scarlett took over, Winter's eyes turned golden. Seeing this, Julian knew right away that Winter's business leader had taken over her. "You don't need days to adjust as you're a powerful air business leader." "What are you avoiding?" Scarlett asked, looking at Julian. Do you regret your decision to give up your emotional bond with Amelia? Winter went silent, wanting to hear Julian's answer. Of course, it would be so like Scarlet to ask such a question right off the bat. Winter could only hope that Julian's answer was not intense chemistry. I think through every decision before I make it, Julian embraced. So why would I regret it? Winter breathed a sigh of relief. It was better that he did not regret it, because if he did, that would only add to his dislike of her. If he had really reconciled with having to give up Amelia, it would be much easier for their relationship to kick off. Are you sure? Scarlet asked, her voice a low, teasing purr. Winter was thrown back into panic mode. What are you doing? She hissed inwardly. Then, show me you mean it, she said to Julian. Winter felt the control switch back to her. Whatever she did now was all up to her. Not Scarlet. She could apologize and leave the room. Winter did not see Julian for several days after what happened in his room. She spent every day waiting for him to show up, her heartbeat speeding every time she thought he was around. But, despite living in the same house, it was like he existed in a different dimension from hers. Atlas Conglomerate made an announcement that Julian's heir inauguration and Winter's grand celebration would take place together in 2 weeks. Several days later at dinner, Astrid informed Winter that she had arranged for her and Julian to go to the store the next day to try on their outfits for the ceremony. Hearing that she was going with Julian, Winter's anticipation grew. She had been thinking about him constantly since they slept together, and finally, she was going to see him and spend some time with him. While she waited for him to show up so they could leave, she thought about what she would say to him. She thought of the conversations they could have on their way to the store, and during shopping that could help them get to know each other better. It had been such a bummer that they hadn't spent any time together so far, but that was going to change. It was good timing too, since she would officially become his leading lady of the family soon. Excited, huh? Scarlet asked as Winter began nervously tapping her feet on the ground. Are you hoping to clear the misunderstanding from your last private conversation? Scarlet teased as Winter nervously tapped her feet. No. I am just relieved that we finally have a chance to talk peacefully. I wonder where he's been all this time. Scarlet mused. Had he been avoiding Winter? But she did not say that out loud, since she did not want to ruin Winter's mood. You know how busy he is at work, and when he isn't, he's dealing with conglomerate matters, Winter replied. He probably leaves before I wake up and gets back much later. The sound of footsteps going down the stairs drew her attention. A few moments later, Julian appeared, making his way downstairs. Winter rose from the seat she had taken in the living room while waiting for him and walked towards him. She was about to call out a greeting, but he did not look in her direction as he made straight for the front door. She hurried after him and followed him out of the house. She admired his figure from behind, awed at how attractive he was from all angles. He was dressed in a pair of black pants and a black shirt that outlined his tall frame and his wide shoulders, and his blonde hair was neatly combed back. He made his way to a car waiting in front of the conglomerate house and got into the driver's seat. Winter opened the passenger door and got inside. For the first time in days, she got a glimpse at his face. He looked much better than he had the last time she saw him. He was no longer pale or weak-looking. You're the reason he gets over the soul-bound at break so soon. Say something to show you care about him. Scarlet encouraged. Only Moon Goddess knew how giggly she was now. Hi, she greeted cheerily, smiling at him. I see that you look so much better. Put on your seatbelt, he not sparing her a glance. Oh, she muttered, reaching for her seatbelt. Her excitement erased off quickly in the face of his iciness. His tone was curt, and the look on his face was as cold as ice. Did something happen? Was he still feeling the effects of breaking the bond with Amelia? Of all the ways she had imagined their first interaction after her visit to his room going? This was not one of them. The entire ride to the clothing store was silent. Winter's mind was overworking, trying to figure out the cause for his coldness. Was he regretting what had happened between them? She didn't know what to say or how to act, so she just remained silent for fear of ruining things. When they got to the clothing store, Julian walked to one of the couches in the room and took a seat. Crossing his legs, he cocked his head at Winter. "You should go try yours on first." Winter nodded and walked into the fitting room. There was a rack of clothes waiting for her. But the moment she saw them, she frowned. She knocked on the door of the fitting room and called out to Julian. "Hey, I can't wear the dresses in here. I think they put in the wrong ones." "What are you talking about?" he asked, sounding a little impatient. "My mother personally selected the dresses, so why don't you hurry up and get it over with? I have things to do after this." "Yes, I understand, but the dresses look wrong. I'm pretty sure my mother knew what she was doing when she selected them." He objected firmly back. "Are you going to try it on, or do you want me to come in and put it on you?" Why was he so irritable? He hadn't even seen the dresses. If he was so busy, he should not have insisted on doing the fitting together. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door and walked outside. Julian was no longer sitting down on the couch. He was standing on one side of the room, looking down at his phone. When she appeared, he turned to look at her. His expression turned into a scowl immediately. He stepped closer, his expression turning to a frown. "Don't you realize what you are wearing?" he asked, his eyes scanning her dress with a frustrated look. "This isn't for the ceremony." His voice was tight, but he kept a respectful distance. "No, and that's what I told you. What was I supposed to do? How would I know? You are smart and always get your way, right?" She knew his reaction must all be because of the things Amelia had said about her.